Welcome to OOO, an out of ordinary podcast where we dig deep into case studies and the nitty gritty of Web3 marketing. You'll find here all the amazing people that are building Web3, so stick to us as we address their marketing secrets and learn how to build amazing products and brands. Hello everyone, I'm Alex, your fellow Web3 marketer and the host of Out of Ordinary podcast. Can you believe this is episode 60 and is the first episode released after the second anniversary of OOO podcast? Yes, we're 2 years old, baby. In these 2 years, we reached a global audience. We built a community of over 11,000 people. We organized the first ever Web3 marketing hackathon in Bangkok during DEF CON and now preparing for the second edition and getting ready to launch our very own token-gated community for marketers, link in bio. I'm super bullish on the state of the market right now and believe together we can push the pedal. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest. Leon Stern is the head of marketing at Polygon Labs, a leading cryptocurrency and blockchain scaling platform about which I'm sure many of you have heard before. With 10 years of marketing experience working everything from agencies to product companies to Web3, his vast understanding of creative strategy and brand positioning has equipped him well in leading Polygon Labs' marketing department over the last year. Today, Leon is focused on solidifying Polygon's role in driving greater Web3 adoption. Hello, Leon. How are you? Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me, Alex.
I don't know how many people know you, but probably a lot of you know of you either from social media or of you being the head of marketing at Polygon. Can you maybe tell us a bit about how you got into Web3 and tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into Web3?
Yes. So I actually started getting into the space a little bit in 2017. My roommate was an early investor in Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like that. So he got me into it. At the beginning, I just started as really just investing in tokens. And as the time passed, I got way more interested in the technology. So in 2020, it's when I actually started getting super into the space and learning about it. And then I decided that I want to join a Web3 company. And in 2021, I started applying for jobs. It took me a while, but eventually I landed at Polygon almost 3 years ago now. I started on the product marketing team. I was leading the positioning and the go-to-market for Polygon POS, which is our main chain. Did that for a while. Then I moved to a different team, which was the growth marketing team. Was working there and leading the team for 1 year. And then I think nine months ago, it's when I started leading the marketing department.
One of the things we spoke about when we first met is that you think there's a big difference, or there are a lot of qualities that distinguish a great marketer, Web3 marketer, from a community manager who has transitioned into a CMO role. I know I complain about it, you complain about it, a lot of people in the space complain about it. It's what are some skills or perspectives that you feel are often missing?
I think there's some people, when you come only from community management and you focus only on community, which is, by the way, super, super important, and we can talk about it. I think you're missing sometimes key marketing parts. And is it your positioning and your messaging and having a consistent narrative and brand? I think as a CMO or a head of marketing, you have to be super on top of it and not just, yes, you need to do marketing for your community, have them involved, which is very different from Web2, by the way. I believe that at least for Polygon, which is a blockchain company that focuses on developers, if you go to a Web2 company, let's say AWS, which is an infrastructure, right? They focus on devs or businesses, and they don't really care about the end user. In Web3, you can't ignore that. Every end user knows that they're using Polygon, right? They're on Polygon chain or on any chain. So you can't ignore it. You need to focus on them. But you still need to remember that you need to have a very clear story and narrative and your positioning. Those things cannot be forgotten. And sometimes because the space moves so fast, people forget to be consistent with them and they change. And with the narrative change, and what's a new thing now? So they completely change their marketing and what they're doing. And that actually confuses both your community and in general, the devs or whoever you're targeting. So it's super important to keep both in mind and not just one of them.
Yeah, I feel like many times a lot of these people don't have enough experience to kind of drive all this, the marketing in Web3, but I think we're going to be touching on that a bit later on as well. One of the questions, so I got a lot of questions from the community, so I'm going to try to like sprinkle them like around the during our conversation. And one of them is regarding exactly about that, like what are some Web2 qualities in marketers that you think would translate well for somebody looking to get their first opportunity in Web3? And what do you think would help somebody get hired with a Web2 background instead of someone with already DeFi or Web3 experience?
Yes, so I think, and that's something I've seen, a lot of Web3 projects focus on distribution. So they just want to go and as many people to hear about them, right? So they like pay for KOLs, some do ads, not all of them do ads. Pay KOLs, do ads, YouTube, whatever. They'll focus on distribution, but they forget, and that's what I was saying before a little bit, which is that positioning and messaging. So if you're coming from a Web2 brand or like a Web2 agency, brand agency, and you have that experience of positioning and messaging, that's even way more important in Web3 than in Web2, because if you really see how Web3 works, it's almost like a cult at some extent. There's a culture. There's like, and for people to want to be part of your culture or your cult or your whatever, or your community, it depends how you want to call it, you need to have that story very, very clear. And if you come from a Web2 brand that knows how to do the right process of finding that positioning, which includes usually interviewing your target audience, speaking, doing competitor research, speaking with your founders and your product team, and understanding really what's that like sweet spot where like, okay, this is my messaging, this is the story, this is the narrative I'm building. If you have that, then the distribution is way much easier. And I feel like there's that gap. People focus a lot of distributing and distribution all the time, but they don't nail the first part. And that's something that Web2 companies do very well. So if you're coming from Web2 and have that background, that can be super helpful to your project. And that aligns also the company internally. It's aligning the founders, aligning product, DevRel, everyone around the same story. And then when you go to market and you tell that story and you nail it, it's the distribution is just like everyone can distribute content. It's not that hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. It's a lot of work and you still need to be creative. But they're not going to be attracted to you or to what you're selling them or what you're telling them if you don't nail the first part, which is that positioning and messaging.
Well, why do you think is that it's happening? Because actually a very big curiosity of mine as well.
What do you think that's missing?
No, I mean, like, why do you think like many Web3 companies don't focus on branding and they go straight to distribution? I see this like time and time again with like a million types of projects that I've encountered in Web3. And when I tell them like, hey guys, let's do a bit of branding, let's like build this thing, let's do a founder's funnel, let's do this. They're like, no, I don't need this. Like, of course you need this.
So I think it can be a few reasons. I guess it depends on each project and the reasons, but sometimes it could come from leadership, which sometimes there are technical people, developers, geniuses, really smart, but they're not necessarily have the marketing background to understand these things. And so they might not push for it. And when your founders or whatever don't care about it, it doesn't go down to the marketing team. That's, I would say, one. The other one could be that it's hard to measure it. If you're a project that really cares about data and making sure that whatever you're doing brings results right away, branding is something that it's more difficult to measure than a clear call to action that it's just like purchase something, right? So sometimes projects, and by the way, this is not only in Web3, also in Web2. I think there's a transition in Web2 of understand, especially around tech companies, that they really need to focus on branding. But I remember 5-7 years ago when I used to work in tech companies that were not focused on branding because it's hard to measure and they don't know exactly how to deal with it. So I think those are two main reasons why they don't do it. And by the way, another reason can be that the market moves so fast that it's like by the time you try to nail some branding or some messaging, you already want to shift and you want to say something else, and you're always chasing that narrative. which I think it's a problem by itself, trying to chase the narratives rather to bring your own narrative and stick to it and focus and consistently push it. But I guess it's also part of the nature of this space that things move really fast and you need to adapt. So some projects might not be sure of what they're even doing, so they don't want to commit to one message or one positioning, so they don't focus on it. So different reasons.
Could be. Something else you mentioned is that many marketers in Web3 tend to copy paste campaigns. I would agree, and I feel like I see this like in cycles coming most times. Like, oh, right now we do this, we do points. I think the last like cycle, if I can call it cycle, you were like points. Now I feel like everybody just does like Telegram games. I'm not exactly sure what else is gonna come up in the next like 3 months, but something else is gonna go up. What do you think is the root of this, the root cause of this trend, and how do you think we can foster more creativity in this space?
Yeah, I think that one of the reasons that we're still trying to figure out this space. And when someone who's not sure what to do sees that something else worked, they just go and try to copy it. And until it stops working, right? And then there's something else that starts working, which is different, and everyone goes after that. I don't know if I look at NFTs, everyone like, so NFTs working, then everyone's starting to launch their NFTs. And now it's like, okay, there's the hype around it went down, so now they moved to something else, and now it's meme coins. And this is not marketing specifically, but even in campaigns, everyone does like fest some things, or like all the marketing messaging in those things are always around festivals or like parties. I don't know. It's everything. It sounds too similar to me. Hard for it's all. I don't really know why they do it. Like when I see something that is repetitive, I'm like, it's actually a turn off, and I don't want to be part of this. It's like, okay, I've seen this too many times. So I try to lead our marketing in a way that it's different than others. But yeah, I think it's part of the nature of the space that we still don't know how things exactly work and what doesn't work. So people just follow things that they see that it looks like, oh, this worked for them. Let's try it too.
I know you guys recently did, you told me it's not a rebranding, but I think that's how kind of the market perceived it in many ways. And I wanted to like ask if you can maybe walk us through what happened, especially because it's very, very recent news, and I think would be very interesting for a lot of marketers out there.
You mean the token change?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So there was the token from Matic to Pol was not a rebrand. It's actually a completely new token with different tokenomics. The reason we needed to do it is because basically Pol will play a different role than Matic was playing in the Polygon ecosystem. One thing is that we're building this we call Ag Layer, which will be a multi-chain ecosystem. Will connect different chains, not just Polygon chains, but also from other ecosystems. And there is a goal that this new token will play a big role there in supporting multiple chains. That's from one hand. And the other hand, also the tokenomics of Pol are different than Matic. There is a 2% emission rate, which half of it goes to supporting the ecosystem. So it's 100 million Pol a year that goes to grow the ecosystem. That's part of our grants program. And it's super important that we have something like that so we keep growing and expanding. And another part also goes to validators, which are securing the chains. Now, why we needed to change it completely, it changed the name, it's because the Matic contract, like it's immutable. You cannot change it. It's not that we can just go. That's how things work, right? Like you cannot just go and change the tokenomics of the token and do whatever we want with it. So we needed to create a completely new contract, and then it's a new ticker with a different name. So that's why there's this rebrand, but it's not an actual rebrand. It's actually a completely different token. Now, we did this in a way that it's super seamless for everyone holding Matic, so it automatically transitions to Pol if they're holding it on Polygon. And if they were holding it on Ethereum, it's also we have an interface where they can easily just go and make the switch. It's one-to-one. They don't lose anything. It's a really good experience. And they also don't have to do it. They can still hold their Matic. It's the same value. There's no problem here. So yeah, So not exactly a rebrand, it's actually a new token.
One of the questions that I got from the community, wait a second, I lost the question, but I will, was regarding like, why do you guys have like so many or like multiple accounts for the same brand, let's say, and why not getting everything together? But I'll ask it. Maybe you can answer that, and like if there's anything else that I missed from the question, then I'll add on that after you
You mean
reply.
by the Twitter accounts?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's basically we have, in the past we had more, by the way, and we're trying to consolidate them into one, not into one, into a few. We have a DeFi one because we really want to focus on the DeFi users and devs. It's a really key focus for Polygon. And if you are, I don't know, if you love DeFi and you only care about DeFi, you might not be wanting just to hear about all the things that Polygon says in general and all the things that we have been putting out in the market. And you just want to focus on DeFi. This is a great way to segment that audience and focus on them and just put the content they're interested in. We have a different one, which is a Polygon Foundation, which is more like related to grants and governance. So it's like very technical stuff and related to our community and our foundation itself. But it's not the regular Polygon thing. So this is it's a very specific segment in the market that we want to focus on. And we didn't want that content to overlap in the main Polygon handle because it's like not everyone will be interested in it. It's just for a very specific type of audience. So segmenting in general, this is marketing in general. I think that segmenting your content to specific audiences when you want to focus on them, it's really important. It's a really good way to do it. But you need to have a balance because too many accounts is not a good idea. And also resources-wise, right? Like you need to maintain multiple accounts. It's more marketing people you need to have there. It's always a question internally. We had in the past even more. We had a gaming one, which we decided to consolidate. We had one just for memes at some point. I think like 2 years ago. It was like the fun one.
Did you have a crypto intern account?
Well, it's Fridays. It's our intern day on Polygon. It's when the intern wakes up and starts posting things. Not also sometimes in the middle of the week, but yeah, we had sort of like a Polygon intern account that we decided to consolidate into the main account. Now you can find more funny Web3 content in our main account too, and not just professional and technical content.
What do you think? I do have a couple of questions here for you. What do you think still works when it comes to like engaging audiences and building communities on Twitter? Because I mean that's your main communication channel on social media, right?
Yes, I think we had phases to this, and different people leading different things, like approach it differently. The way I see it is that the community, as I said at the beginning, we have the positioning and all that stuff and the messaging, which we nailed at this point. Now we're moving to a phase that we want to grow our community again. We'll keep growing it. We have a nice community, but we can do better there. And funneling down from Twitter to Discord and Telegram and those channels and actually start fostering a community and activate them there and making them Polygon advocates by actually bringing them real value, I think it's super, super important. And it's one of the main focuses for the marketing team in the next few months. And I believe everyone will start seeing that more soon. But I think it's key for Web3 projects because, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is not just you're selling a product and you have the builders or the businesses that you're making businesses with, and that's it. Your success really depends on your community. And by the way, as a marketeer, my goal really is that Polygon doesn't need to do more marketing because we have so many people who love Polygon and they're constantly speaking about Polygon on socials that it's almost they do the work for you. But obviously to get to that, you need to bring them real value, and it's not easy. But that's kind of like end goal. And by the way, we have projects in the space that have that. If I look at Solana, their community is so loud that I don't even need to see Solana's marketing to understand what Solana is doing or if it's a good project or not. Like I just see their community vibing around them, and there are other examples that have done a really good job, like Barrelchain, Monad, that I feel like their community does the marketing for them.
But these are chains. Do you think like when it comes to like other types of products in Web3, it's still the same?
I think that for other products, it's probably it really depends, right? If you, let's say it this way, if you have a token, it will be different if you don't have a token, because the stake that your user has is completely different. Polymarket, for example, I'm not sure if they have a big community or not, but they're super successful, and they don't have a token. But just because they have a real product market fit and a really good use case. I feel like if you're a really good application that people enjoy using it, and then it becomes more like a Web2 product that brings a real value, you don't necessarily need that. But if you're somewhat in between, you can only benefit from a community. So I think that it's efforts that that applications on top of blockchains still can do it, but I think for blockchains it's probably even more important.
Mm-hmm. One of the best examples I know we have in the space regarding like good branding and having a good name and building a good name for themselves in the industry is Celestial. What are some lessons you think we can learn from them?
Okay, first I want to say that Celestial has one of the best marketeers I've seen in the space, which is Ekram. And just by following his work, I learned a lot. They done an amazing job creating this category of modular blockchains. I think they started over 2 years ago, and it took time. But if I go back to the idea of the positioning and messaging, they did this work right, and they stayed consistent with their ideology that blockchains can be modular, and they created this category. And for over 2-3 years, they kept pushing that idea. They never chased any other narratives. They focused on what they believed in. And now it's one of the most successful projects in the space, and everyone knows them. And a lot of people are following what they've done. And I think we can learn a lot from how they were not this kind of project that changes narratives every 2 days and sticks with one. And it worked for them. It took time, but it takes time to build this kind of positioning and category. But now they've done a really good job. Yeah.
How do you guys define Polygon's brand and positioning now, especially after the shift towards targeting enterprises? And how has this redefinition impacted your marketing strategy? Because that must have been hard.
Yeah, so I want to say enterprises was a focus for Polygon 2 years ago. And I know that there's still work there to fix that perception. We basically 2021, 2022, Polygon started working a lot with Web2 companies. And we had Starbucks, we had Nike, Stripe, Robinhood. There was a lot of work with really big enterprises, and that was our focus. And that was a time where it was a bull market. There was a lot of interest from Web2 companies to move to Web3, and and because of that success, we was a success, by the way, by then, before FTX and Luna collapsed and all those things kind of went with it. We kind of lost the focus on Web3 users and people in the community. It worked really well for Polygon for a while, but then we needed to make this shift. And I don't know how much the audience follows Polygon marketing the last year. I know there's also a lot of noise in the market and a lot of new projects, but whoever follows will see that like we're way more degen in our marketing. We try to be funny. We try to lean into trends within the Web3 culture. And we're definitely not focusing on enterprises anymore. We're but we're not, like, also our BD team are not even speaking as much with enterprises from Web2. They're actually focusing on projects and developers within the Web3, and we're trying to reflect that in our marketing as well. And whoever follows will see that also we became technical in our marketing at some extent. there's a balance that we always try to keep in between being too technical, but also somehow simplified to have it more accessible for people. But at the end of the day, Polygon focuses on bringing developers who can build either applications or chains. So also a lot of our marketing is focuses on those audiences, and it's a bit technical. So we shift from that enterprise focus to more Web3, focusing on developers and technical content.
How do you define degens?
Ooh.
I'm asking this because I had a huge debate with my audience recently on Twitter, and I came back from Singapore thinking like, oh, degens, like for me right now in 2024, in October 2024, for me degens are adult males in with high school mentality, and because it feels like it's just like I feel like, and then I looked it up on Google and I was like, okay, what does Google say? Like, what's the definition of it? And I think the way it was defined was like people that get like high risk with their investments. And I'm like, but this is not how we use degen in Web3. So like, what is actually a degen?
Yeah, I think it's a broad term, right? Like there are different ways to think about it. I think at least for the marketing side, especially because we don't speak about trading or tokens or things like that, which is very focused. We focus more on the degen side of like the funny parts, like the memes, the like bringing funny and interesting content that people enjoy like seeing, rather on the degen of who trades with leverage and lost all their money in one day or became millionaires in 2 days. I don't know, like that. I think at least for the marketing side, it's like we target that persona, but in the funny side of things, like trying to be funny, trying to target those like trends in the market on Twitter, or even sometimes trends from TikTok or Instagram that we take onto Twitter and like try to play with them to attract that audience. I guess that's.
So what are these degens for you guys? Are they like some sort of developers that like dig a lot the Web3 culture? Like
I think you get some developers who are into the Web3 culture. I think you got also DeFi degens who are more like the traders, but they're into Web3 culture. And yes, the definition of male partying in high school, I'm assuming not all of them are, but like everyone has a little bit of it. I think everyone has whoever's in Web3 has a little bit of degen inside of it. Everyone in a different way. I don't want to generalize of everyone is this way or another, but I, for example, might not be 1,000% a degen, but I have specific things from it, right? Like I like the memes, or I could be that I get at times that I used to trade like crazy. Like that's also like a degen way of doing things. There are the ones who can be super serious at their work, but then they go and party like crazy. So everyone has a little bit of degen inside of it, and you just need to find a way to attract them and your marketing for it, so they can feel like what's the word, like part of it, right? Like they wanna they find like bringing up that sentiment, that emotion. They're like, oh, Polygon it's a fun brand. That's something that we want to do.
I get it. I think like this is something that a lot of the times is happening in Web3. I think this like fun thing, like I think it's a bit more important compared to Web2 many times. And probably as I told you at the beginning of our conversation, a lot of people ask us about the narrative and like how do you make sure you keep the narrative there. I kind of want to get it right now into like more like numbers oriented stuff, let's say. What are some metrics and numbers that you can share with us that demonstrate the success of your consistent strategy, and how do you measure the long-term impact of these efforts?
Yes, so I think first I want to say just that most of our marketing focuses on brand awareness because of the nature of the space of like a lot of projects want to build on blockchains that are like they're attracted by like kind of like a shared there's a mind share around the project. There's like the shared like sentiment if the project is good and it's doing well, and that's where projects are attracted to come and build in. So a lot of what we measure is actual brand sentiment and mind share. We use some sentiment analysis tools like Kaito to track that and see the effects of our marketing. But it's not only for marketing, right? A lot of things affect it. And more specific campaigns where we actually seen really good results is if I spoke about moving users, not users, but like the community members and people from Twitter to our community channels and activating them. We did a gaming campaign a few months ago where, if I need to look at the exact numbers, but I think we ended up having 4,000 people moving from Twitter to Discord, joining Discord and participating in gaming nights that we did on different Polygon games, like not games that Polygon developed, but games that decide to develop on Polygon POS on our blockchain. And we saw an amazing result. Like we incentivized users to come and play. I think we put prices of $30,000. And at the end, like the winners were able to come and claim their prize for playing those games, and 80% of them didn't even claim them at the end. So, which was interesting to see that they were actually didn't come for that. They came for being part of something, being part of this community and playing games with other people and like actually thriving together. It was more interesting for them than just like getting that money, because I think a lot of times this industry is driven by incentives that are just money and how do I make profit. But it's also, there's a lot of value in actually just doing things together and people enjoy doing and having fun, that we've seen amazing results. This is one example where we had actually 4,000 people actually on Discord playing games for 2 weeks in a row, for 2 weeks every single night. And this is one of those community activations that we're going to continue doing moving forward.
So, in my understanding, from what I from what I get from you, is that like these things like market sentiment, not market, but like community sentiment and the engagement in this kind of activities, like marketing campaigns that you do, let's say, or marketing activities that you do, are more like or with the existing community. But like, what are there other types of metrics that you feel like are important for you at Polygon? Is it like, I don't know, in terms of growth or engagement or whatever?
Yeah, so there are things that are attributed. By the way, this is one of the biggest challenges I think we have, is the attribution part. In Web 2, it's really simple, right? You sign up. So that's like whatever. You do a marketing campaign, you lead people to your website or your product, they sign up. Then let's say there's a checkout or a buy, or like if it's a SaaS company, they can easily just go and purchase, and you can attribute, okay, from that campaign, we got this amount of new users paying. And everything, this is a loop, you can measure, there's a very clear funnel, super easy. For us at Polygon, because we're an infrastructure company and we're a blockchain and we focus on developers who build either chains or dApps, the cycle is not that straightforward, right? It can take months until someone who saw a campaign we did on Twitter went to our website, went to the developer docs, and they ended up developing a dApp 2-3 months later. Like, it's really hard to attribute that to the marketing we did. But you can then look at the general, like the bottom line of the numbers, right? Seeing at the end of every quarter, you can measure how many new dApps have deployed on Polygon. You can see, so you can still track that growth, and we do it internally. It's just not attributed exactly to a marketing campaign that focuses on developers. By the way, this is different from a marketing campaign focused on community members, which that's what I said before. That was a very easy thing to track. How many people from Twitter went to Discord, stay there, play the games, ended up even claiming the rewards or not. That funnel we were able to, and by the way, for dApps, it's a must. dApps have to have that funnel, and it's possible to track it. Focusing on devs is a little bit more difficult, but we still look at overall numbers, and we attribute, are we doing a good job or not in general, by seeing the growth on the chain, how many daily active users, how many dApps, how many transactions. Those are still things that you can track. They are just not attached directly and attributed to a specific marketing campaign. By the way, I've spoke with dozens of vendors to see if anyone has this kind of solution. There's a lot of Web3 tools that like...
I was about to ask, like, what kind of tools are you using for that?
Yeah, so I spoke with many of them, and most of them focus on more on the apps side of things. Like if you're an app and you have a Connect wallet on your website, they can attribute, oh, this came from Twitter, I connected their wallet, and continued in the funnel to mint your NFT or data transaction on chain. That's something doable. You have Spindle that they can do that. I think I know there is another one, I can't remember the name, but there are a few Web3 tools that
Addressable does something similar, no?
So Addressable, which by the way, I'm not really, they're also friends of mine, and I know them very well. They help you really target people on Twitter, devs or Web3 users, so whoever uses blockchains, they can easily find them and target them. So it's really good for ads. And I think they also actually have collaboration with Spindle where they track what happens afterwards, and they give you that funnel.
Why do you think it's so hard for these companies? First of all, I think it's a market that has so much potential because nobody's building anything. Why do you think there's so few tools that marketers can use to fix these issues?
Yeah, if I focus on that specific issue of finding the developers, I think if you think about it, I don't want to spend too much time into that, but if you really think about what it means, first of all, privacy reasons, tracking, it's a little bit complicated in the space more than other spaces. People care more about their privacy than in Web2. And also knowing that it's really hard to track. The app that you deploy on a blockchain, you use a wallet, a contract address. It might not be the same address that you use in your personal. So we might not know that this is the same person. It is a little bit of a problem. And in general, for your question of why we have so little tools, I don't know. I actually been seeing more and more tools lately, but I think we're early. We're still early in a way that we haven't really found the right product market fit in the industry. I don't know, I tweeted that a month ago that only 3 apps, and by the way, I'm probably wrong with this assumption, but only 3 apps have actually found product market fit, and it was Polymarket, Courtyard, and what's the name? The NFTs, the NBA NFTs that we had 2 years ago. It's for tools to be able to help marketeers, we need to be able to be in a point that we actually have businesses thriving from our applications for us to be able to go and pay for something, right? We're not there yet. I think blockchains are in a much, the infrastructure level, it's in a good place that now apps can start actually building proper applications, but we're still missing a significant amount of them. So tools can actually thrive from those businesses that they pay for that service.
But I still get asked this quite a lot at interviews, and every time I talk to people, oh, what kind of tools have you used in Web3? What kind of campaigns have you run?
Addressable, Spindle, I can think of at least. I know there are more, and I probably don't know all of them.
Cookie3, Safari. I don't know if it's... I actually don't know if the tool is actually called Safari, but I know they have a tool for sure for with cookie tracking.
Yeah, and there are also a few others that are more analytics, if you Nansen or things like that are good to target, to market research and things like that. Kaito, that's one that I like for more brand sentiment and mindshare. But by the way, the fact that we both know exactly that those 5 to 10 tools, it means that there's an opportunity here, right? We're just looking for them.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is a good point.
How do you so one question I got on Twitter is like, how do we avoid quest and vanity metrics when it comes to launching new products?
How do we avoid quests?
How to avoid quests and vanity metrics when launching new products?
Listen, for Polygon,
Branding.
yeah, for Polygon, it's a little bit easier. We haven't done really a lot of quests when we launched products because we have a lot of organic mindshare and traffic, and like we're at a point that there are too many projects even wanting to build on Polygon at times. So we have the privilege that we don't need to go in and do crazy incentives or quests that hint for things like airdrops, right? Like, why do people do those quests? Like, they know they might get something. But I think branding and positioning and having, and by the way, early on starting to build a community, which is what projects like I said, like Monad and Parachain are projects that the day they launch their chain, they're not going to need to do quests because everyone is already aware of them. They can just go and launch. Everyone follows them. Everyone sees what they're doing. I think focusing on that, building that community at the beginning by bringing them actual value. And then when you launch a product, you don't need to go crazy with the incentives. And I think one of the reasons they do that is because they want to launch fast. So they don't do the prep work before, right? Like Monad and Virgin have been here for a while now, and they're building and building this mindshare, and without a chain being, without a product being outside, right? Without a token, without a product, because they took the time to do it right. Where others like, oh, there's a bull market in 2 months. We need to launch your token right now, and we need to launch your chain right now, or a product or whatever. So it's like they just move super fast.
Yeah, I actually have an example of that. So one of the projects that we recently signed, I mean, I can't give names, but basically they have a product. Their marketing is really bad. Like branding is really bad. The website is really bad. They have an affiliation program, like a referral program that looks like an MLM scheme. And I asked them this morning, hey guys, like, where can I find this? They're like, oh, we actually took it off the website because it looked like too dodgy. Their communication is really bad on Twitter because apparently the CEO decided not to invest money in marketing and actually do the content himself, which obviously he doesn't have time to do it. And then when they asked us to bring them traders to trade on their platform, I'm like, my traders can work on pretty much anywhere with anything. But at the same time, I think it's so hard to like get you the numbers that you would dream of. I can't even say expect, but dream of, when everything else is just like a house like falling in shambles. It's just, why? And we of course, like, we proposed to them, like, hey guys, like, let's do a bit of branding, let's like give us the account, we can do like all the content for you, like we can establish things a bit, and then we can do like the trading part. They're like, no, we just want to like start with this, and then like we can think of more. I'm like, and it happens, this is an example of a project that I'm recently working with. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, if I can help them do whatever they need to be done, like, I'll take their money, I'll deliver, and it is what it is. But deep down inside, I'm crying, to be honest with you.
I totally get. By the way, I think there's a balance where projects, you don't need to do the best branding and possible day one. I think it's actually the wrong decision to make, right? Like, if you don't have product market fit yet, if you're not sure on your direction, and this is just an MVP or whatever, it's okay to not do this legendary branding. But there's like good enough just to start, that it requires minimal work, but it's still what you need to actually go and check your product. Because if you're nothing, then it's like, well, maybe nothing worked for you because you don't have anything to work with, but you need to have a little bit, so it's actually, you can go and test it. I think there is a balance. If you're already a very well-known brand and with product market fit, and you know what you do, then you need to go with that's like what I call legendary branding. But if not, you can have the good enough where it's just what you need for the moment you are. your product roadmap or whatever. But yeah, I agree with you. It's
For sure. What do you think is the biggest facepalm moment you've encountered while marketing in the Web3 space?
facepalm moment when doing marketing. For myself or for things that I've seen? I guess.
I mean, the question is for yourself, but if you feel like there's a bigger lesson out there, because I think I would guess you've also learned from other people's mistakes as well, right?
Yes, I think I'll say it in general, because I don't think it's also myself, but also things I've seen. There's a consistent thing happening in the Web3 space, which is basically announcing announcements and launching when. And what I mean announcing announcements is like basically you're announcing that in 1 year you're gonna have something. And which I understand why it's been done, but it's every time for me. Like I feel like the projects who have evolved from that and are acting more like, I'll give you an example, Apple. They don't go and to their keynote and launch the new iPhone when it's going to be ready in 1 year. Well, they don't announce it when it's going to be ready in 2 weeks. You're going to be able to buy it. In this space, we announce things years in advance, months or years in advance, just to keep some hype around yourself. But then it's like, for a marketeer, it's really hard to keep that hype for that long when it's not happening in a month or two, right? You need to keep talking about whatever you just announced that you're launching for months and months and months and months, where people get tired. And I think, and I don't know why sometimes we make those mistakes. It's because like you want to feel like you're still relevant and in the conversation and you're part of the narrative and you want people to talk about you, but you actually in the long term you're hurting yourself. So that happened to me at Polygon, happens to other projects that they just announce things and then it's like really hard to keep that narrative live when you don't launch any product that people can go and use. So I guess that's every time when I do the Facepalm. Hope that answer the question. I think we need to be in a place where we announce things when we're actually ready for people to go and use them.
I think sometimes it's also like you get so excited about it and then some things like fall apart, like you can't really deliver on time. And I've seen this like firsthand, like with my personal profile, with like things that I developed and I tried to like build. But like there are things that I thought I will launch in August, like the latest. And right now it's already October and it's still a work in progress. And I'm hoping like it's maybe will take like a month or two tops. But I promise myself I'll do it by the end of the year because otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And listen, at the end, it also hurts your product team sometimes to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
They need to, we promise the market this is going live soon and they need to work on something that, by the way, all this tech we're building is new, right? No one's done it before. So it's not like you can have a clear estimate on how long this is going to take. It's like innovative technology that it's really hard to do. And it's like, it's better to avoid those promises until you're actually ready to launch it. So yeah.
Case studies are something that like we're very big on this podcast, and the audience is always asking for it. And I know you already mentioned like this gaming nights that you're doing at Polygon, but something I wanted to ask is like how this campaign started. Like, was it a need? Who was it for? Why did you guys do it? And maybe like what are some lessons you've learned from it, except for the fact that like people enjoyed spending time and like getting to know other people from the community and playing with them?
Yeah, so the reason for that campaign, Polygon used to be very well known as a gaming chain, or like not a gaming chain, but we basically had the biggest market share in gaming for a long time. In the past, there was this sub company for Polygon that was Polygon Studios, and their focus was just bringing games to Polygon. And then for multiple reasons, changes in strategy, it looked like, I'm not saying we stopped taking care of projects, also gaming projects, but it looked like from an outside perspective is that we are focusing less on games. So we got a lot of feedback from builders and gamers in the space and people in general that it looks like we're losing our marketing, or sorry, our gaming market share to others. So that was kind of like what brought up this, like, let's show everyone that it's not true. We still have the best games in the industry on Polygon, and we do. By the way, gaming in general, Polygon has Polygon with immutable and running, which immutable and running are also building their blockchains using Polygon technology. At least from until 3-4 months ago, it was 70% of the market share on gaming in Web3. So that's what brought to this campaign, kind of, and showing everyone that gaming is still live and happening on Polygon. It's just really hard for a general purpose chain that focuses on multiple verticals like DeFi and gaming and DePIN and RWAs, and at the same time you also want to focus on the technology. And at Polygon we have multiple solutions and not just one blockchain. It's really hard to do marketing for all of them at the same time and at the same intensity. So sometimes you need to prioritize for different reasons, and happens that for a few months, like you go a little bit more quiet on a specific topic, and then people start feeling, oh, you guys are not focusing on this anymore, which is not true. Like behind the scenes that we are doing a lot of things, but at the end of the day, you have some limited space on Twitter and our social channels where you can talk about something. And also you don't want to go, if we talk about branding and positioning and messaging in the beginning, something that marketeers know is like you cannot talk about 20 things at the same time because everyone's going to be confused. No one's going to understand what you're doing. And it's better to be really good at one thing than trying to be good at 20 things or mediocre at 20 things. So yeah, but that's why we did that specific gaming campaign.
What does a proper funnel look like in the context of Polygon and like what you guys are building?
You have, I'll say, two main different funnels. The first one is the developer one, which is most of them, by the way, from some data and numbers, they don't even go through our website. They go straight away to the developer docs. It could be that it's from an event, or it can come from Twitter or like social channels in general. They will go to the developer docs and they start building in a permissionless way, right? You can build on a blockchain without it really talking to anyone. But they also have the different funnel where they actually go and speak with our BD team. And many times, actually, our BD team, which is one of the best teams in the industry, they go and find those projects. They source them and they reach out to them because we see that they have a lot of potential. And we also have the grants program, which a lot of projects come through that. That's, I guess, the developer funnel. And then you have the more end of users funnel, this is more like the classic funnel of Twitter, website, and then our community channels like Discord and Telegram. And many times what I was saying in the beginning that we want to start doing now is having those activations like the gaming campaign. And eventually, really the goal is for them to go to use the applications on Polygon, right? Like we want to send them to use those games, or we want to send them to Polymarket. Like we want them to actually gain value from being part of the Polygon community and enjoy using applications and products on our blockchain.
Are events part of your funnel?
Yes, events usually they go through the BD route right away. It's most times.
We all know that like L2 solutions topic is very hot right now in Web3. What do you think are some messaging and strategies that you guys are using to differentiate yourself? I mean, obviously Polygon has like a very big name in this space, so it's not like it's a very small chain that just launched. But like, how do you make sure that you stand out?
Yeah, I think we're moving now from just focus or being seen as an L2 and to like more like we call this an aggregated blockchain network. Basically, we're building Ag Layer, which aims to connect all L2s together, but not just L2s, also other chains from different ecosystems. And it's basically looking like to the future of blockchains, like what's going to be like at the end of the day. We understand that one chain cannot have everything with it, right? Like no, and you need to have that good user experience. Like you need to scale in a way that one chain cannot do it, and you need to have a good user experience where multiple chains. It's like if you think about it, it's a really bad experience, right? You have different chains, and you need to bridge between them, and it's not the best uh, UX for anyone. So we're building Ag Layer, which aims to connect all L2s and L1s together, so people can use whatever they want without really knowing what chain they're using. That's the goal, and this is where we're focusing on our messaging. So we're not focused anymore on like being the best L2 or anything like that. Like at least not in the marketing side. And by the way, some would say that Polygon as a chain is not even an L2. It's more like a side chain or a L1. But we have Polygon ZKVM, which is an L2. But we're building Ag Layer, which aims to connect Polygon POS, Polygon ZKVM, but also other chains. And we already have some of them. We also partner with, we have a collaboration with Movement Labs, which will bring all the Move chains to Ag Layer and connect them. So we really are building this ecosystem, this network that will connect multiple chains while all the chains can still build with whatever technology they want. So it's really like a win-win for both devs that want to build with whatever technology they want based on their needs, but also for users that will have this unified experience and unified liquidity. So that's how we're trying to differentiate ourselves from the regular L2 chains that just are one chain. But even here, we started marketing this 6 months ago now. And since then, also other L2s have started doing some similar things. ZK Sync now has Elastic Chain. Optimism also, they were working on Superchain even before that, but now they're just announced a few months ago that they're also going to have interoperability in between their own chains. So even if we're trying to, we differentiate ourselves, but then the market picked up really quickly to that. So we need to keep evolving, I guess, or launching this in a really good way, where hopefully we'll launch it really soon.
Do you maybe have any kind of campaigns that like you launched, you're super excited about it and didn't go as planned?
It's a good question. So it's always like the interview question, like, what are your weaknesses?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking during when I was asking you questions. I was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
What are my weaknesses? Just kidding. So we have, let me think about it. I'll say this layer is a layer covered. We launched ZK EVM. No, you know what? By the way, this is not just me. Like there's a lot of Polygon people who work it. It was before I was leading marketing. But we had the Polygon 2.0 roadmap last year that we launched. And I don't think we were I think it went well at some extent, but we were not extremely happy, at least internally, in how we managed everything. Just because like it was probably too early when we announced. It was like we announced like the roadmap for Polygon for the future. Basically, it was a big marketing campaign around it. I don't think it wasn't as smooth as we wanted it to be.
You think you were ahead of the market, or like why? Not sure I got it.
I don't think that we had it nailed down exactly what we want to say before we went out. And that's what I'm saying about because I'll give you an example. From the Ag Layer, which is our main focus today, was part of that roadmap. But only a few months later, we realized that that piece is the biggest part of that roadmap. But when we launched it initially, it was just like a little component of it, and we were not like as excited about it. We didn't talk about it as like, it didn't even have the name. It was just like an interoperability layer. That's how it's been shown in that roadmap. We still follow that roadmap, and it's still very relevant today. But I think, at least from the marketing perspective, we didn't nail it because we didn't have full understanding of what we want to say, and we just moved really quickly.
What is the role that like content marketing plays in your strategy? And do you maybe have some example of a piece of content that you think performed really well and like helped you with your visibility?
Yeah, actually, it's a huge part. We're super active on our blog. We have an amazing guy called Shelby. He writes all our blog content. So
You guys do SEO?
it's not that focused to SEO focus. And on purpose, we've been researching. I've been looking into SEO a lot. It's just a different type of content. It's less narrative driven in a way of like telling a story, but it's more like focusing on keywords. And also, I think there is a place for that. It's just an extra resource that we don't have today, and we rather focus on the story and what we're building. And actually, because there is a community that follows Polygon and reads our blogs and sees the content that we put out, we don't focus as much on the organic search. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I wish we could do both. It's just a research thing. There are companies that do it really well. For example, Alchemy is a company that focuses on SEO, and I think they do a really good job. I've seen Ethereum, by the way. If you look at really technical terms in the Web3 space, Ethereum website actually is like always the leader of them. But our content marketing, it's more about like the story we tell, to updating our community of what we're building and our roadmap and what are like the next thing. And really, it's more educational rather than SEO focus. Also, a lot of the SEO in the Web3 space is like, what are the top tokens or things like that, or that it's not things that we're interested in talking about. And by the way, in terms of metrics and results, the blog content that we publish has double the time. Like when a user enters a website, like a landing page, the time that they spend on our blog is like 2 or 3 times more than any other page on the website. It's like, and I think it's like 2 to 3 minutes in every blog post. So it means that people are actually reading it, and it has more traffic than our general pages on the website. So it works for us. It's a good purpose.
Yeah, fair enough. What are you most bullish on moving forward, especially when it comes to industry trends and marketing trends? What do you think is going to be next?
I think I don't know if it exactly will answer the questions in turn, but I think that marketing in Web3 it's way more fun than in Web2.
I think that's why we're all there, right?
Yeah, and I think the just because it's like you have more freedom, you can be. If we talk about vision or memes or things like that, you have that. It's not just you have that option to do it; it's like almost a requirement to be like that. So I think that there was a time 2 years ago where Web2 companies started moving to Web3. It happened at Polygon, but not only at Polygon. I've seen a lot of Web3 players going to that and trying to be super professional in their marketing and super like enterprise and tech heavy and like boring. But I think that the trend that has happened in the last year is actually completely the opposite. The projects that are doing well are the super funny Web3 culture, degen, meme. So I think that trend will continue. And it actually, for marketers, is a lot of fun because you have more flexibility with your marketing. And by the way, you can make mistakes. It allows, I think that's something that that I really believe in. Like, because we have that flexibility in the marketing of doing more, I'll call it stupid things. You can make more mistakes and learn from them. So I think it gives you flexibility. When you want to be professional, it's like everything is like has to be perfect and to the point, and like you can't allow to say a joke or say something that it's like. But I think marketing is moving to a more fun direction.
Yeah, I think that was actually the reason why I got into Web3. So I get this asked like quite a lot, like, oh, why? What do you like about it? And like the fun of it. One of the last questions that I have for you is like, what's one tool you love in Web3? So here you can tell me, like, I know we already spoke about like marketing tools, but do you have any like any type of resources, newsletters, books that you've read and you think like are good for the audience to check as well?
So the tools, spin addressable, things like that are really good. Kaito is really good. I've read a lot of books, the Web3 marketing books. I honestly, I think they're good. Like if you look up on, I don't remember the names of it. There's the one from Amanda that I think uh, it's good. It's a solid one. I think there's an interview, by the way, from Ekram, the guy I was talking about from Celestia. I can send you the link later that he explains how he thinks about marketing in Web3 that people can learn from it. And spending time on Twitter. It's a really good resource to learn about what people think, what people say, but with a caveat of that's not everyone. So going to events and listening from people in real life, it's completely different from what you're going to hear on Twitter.
1000%.
So have both in mind. Don't bias your opinion just on one. You need to have a broader perspective. And yeah, I guess that's at least the things I follow. I don't have as much time to be reading books right now, unfortunately. Well, at least I choose not to. I don't know. But that's where my sources: Twitter, in real life events, and some podcasts like that I found about marketing. By the way, there are more people now like you that are doing marketing content on Web3, like about Web3. So following people like you, it's really helpful.
Let's go. The more the merrier, I guess. Leon, before we wrap up this episode, like, where can people find you?
Twitter, I guess. Where if it was a Web2 podcast, I would say LinkedIn, but Twitter. It's my name, Leon Stern. Yeah.
I'll add it in the description of the episode. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you again and to speak to you again and to pick your brain on like a lot more cool stuff that you guys are doing at Polygon and not only. And so thanks again, Leon, and see you next time.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to our Out of Ordinary podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to hear more content like this, then open up the podcast app and click on the follow or subscribe button. It takes less than 5 seconds and is the single best thing you can do to support the show and stay up to date to more marketing strategies that are being used in the Web3 space.